So welcome everybody to our session. My name is Malin Lay, and I'm a health sciences librarian here at the U of M at the NJM Health Sciences Library. I'm going to be leading the first of the three sessions that we're offering as an introduction to AI from the library. So note that the slides are available via the QR code here up on the screen, on the link listed there, and that I believe Justin has already popped the link into the chat as well. But if you're joining in and you don't see them, I'm sure he will be happy to repost them as well. The University of Manitoba campuses and research spaces are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabeg, the Innuit, the Unsinawak, the Dakota Oyote, the Dene, and the Inuit, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. I also want to acknowledge that our work is sustained by water from Shoal Lake 40 in Treaty 3 territory, and it's powered by the rivers found in Treaty 5. And as this presentation focuses on AI, I feel it is essential that we acknowledge that the AI technology is not truly cloud-based, but is very much land-based. The data centers that power AI consume vast amounts of water that come from these same local water sources. And further, the AI systems carry the same systemic biases of colonization into the digital world. So as we benefit from these resources, we have to commit to building an AI future that is both technologically advanced, but also environmentally just and equitable for Indigenous people. In my own work as a librarian, I attempt to foster AI literacy and to educate others and myself on these biases to ensure that Indigenous voices and perspectives are not erased. So I've listed my session objectives here. Really, they just focus on the exploration of AI tools, how to use the systems effectively, and how to kind of build prompts to get better responses. And I've put the outline here today, and we're going to have a brief introduction to generative AI. So this is a kind of AI fundamentals, and I recognize that some of you may be familiar with some of the things we talk about already, but I do want to ensure that we're all on the same page. And throughout the presentation, what you're going to see is this kind of try now icon. And I encourage you to do something kind of on your own while you're listening to me talk, just so it can kind of reinforce some of the concepts that we're talking about. And as already mentioned, my colleague Justin, who will be teaching the second session, but he is in the chat. So if you have any questions, if you have any technical issues, please just message him. And I want to remind people that we are holding 2 more workshops the same time over the next 2 weeks, and to register if you haven't done so already. And a reminder that grad students who attend all 3 are eligible to have it added to your experience record. So the URL for registration is just right here, and you can also use that QR code. So first things first, I always like to get a sense of everyone's kind of familiarity with AI in general. So I do have this Menti, and I'll just bring up the responses. So feel free to join using, again, the QR code or the Mentimeter code listed right there. And I will then bring this up. Okay, so I see that people are joining. I'll just give it a second more. Okay, so first question. Oh, and I want to note people are like, oh, I can go through. I've set it up so you can go through all the questions on your own at any time. So the first is that I have deliberately used a generative AI tool in the past week, and I'm always very conscious of putting the word deliberate there, because as you're probably seeing now, even if you don't want to be using generative AI, you are being forced to by some systems. So if you do a Google search, it's providing you that AI summary up at the top, whether you want it or not. But this is a deliberate use. You have chosen to use it. Okay, so definitely the large majority making that choice to use it. Okay, could you define the following? So large language models, natural language processing, and retrieval augmented generation. So far, I'll just give it a second more. The most kind of familiarity with the models, less with retrieval augmented generation, which is great because I'm going to spend time talking about it. So it's good to know it's going to be a new topic for a lot of people. Okay, so how comfortable are you with the concept and practical applications of it? So yeah, in the middle. Okay. So, and that's what I liked. Oh, sorry. That's kind of what I am expecting to see. So if in this session, if I bring up something or you want to share something about your own experiences that you think other attendees might benefit from, feel free to put that into the chat as well. We always can learn from one another and what we've experienced using these tools. Okay, next one. Okay, which one have you used the most? It's always ChatGPT. Okay, so lots of ChatGPT, a little bit more Copilot. Okay, so DeepL, which is a translator. Yeah, Perplexity, which is the browser. Some DeepSeek, which is, I should make the case that DeepSeek is not allowed to be used at the University of Manitoba. Okay, but some Copilot. Okay, and some Claude. And I'm going to be making a case for Claude throughout as well. Okay, so what are you hoping to learn or gain from this session? So some prompts, learn how to use it in your research, some integrity guidelines, integrity. So I do want to note, I just want to be upfront. So Justin and I are really going to be diving deep into kind of the integrity, the ethics, attribution, transparency, and usage in our third session. So this is really a session of an introduction. So I just want to let you know if that's what you're waiting for. It's not going to happen today, but it will happen on the third one. Okay, yeah, when it should and shouldn't be used, how to be more efficient, and then prompts. Okay, great. Okay, and then this one is questions. I'll leave it. You can answer. You can put in questions anytime. You can, of course, put questions into the chat as well. But these ones are anonymous. We'll come back to them at the end of the session to answer. So thank you, everybody. Okay, and I'll just go back to my session or my presentation here. Okay, so let's dive into kind of an introduction to generative AI. And I think we've just seen from the Menti that everybody comes with different levels of experience, different questions. And so again, some of it might be a refresher and some of it might be brand new, what we talk about today. But in order to understand the technology and when it is appropriate to use, when it isn't, why you might be seeing things that you're seeing, you need to have a basic understanding of kind of the underlying structure. And I want to share my caveats here. I'm not an expert. I am not a computer scientist. I just am someone who has a bit of a pragmatist approach to using AI and how it is impacting higher education. And I want to ensure that if you are using AI, whether with your schoolwork, whether with your research, that you understand kind of what's happening behind the scenes as much as possible. Okay, so our first kind of try it now is what I want you to do is while I'm talking is to go ahead and open up an AI tool. And I would encourage you to use one that you don't normally use. So if you normally use ChatGPT, go to Claude and try opening that. If you use Gemini, try ChatGPT. So just to explore maybe a tool that you haven't used too much. Okay, so in AI, there are a lot of terms out there that can cause confusion. So I personally find it really helpful when I'm thinking about these technologies is to think about how they impact my daily life to kind of help ground them, which then helps me remember them. So let's kind of walk through some of these terms. So AI, artificial intelligence, right, is the very broad, all-encompassing term. And it really captures the idea of creating machines that are capable of performing tasks that usually require human intelligence. So these AI technologies, they vary very widely in their complexity and their applications. But really, the goal of a lot of AI is to kind of mimic those cognitive functions like problem solving and pattern recognition. So a simple and very early example of AI was, the development of those computer programs that could play chess. And a kind of more modern, very, well, now we think of it as simple, but not when they first came out, is, smart thermometers. The next term is machine learning, and it is a subset of AI. So for machine learning, instead of thinking of, a programmer kind of sitting down and writing strict rules for every possible scenario that might happen and what the computer should do. Instead, the computer is given data and it learns the rules itself. And it uses kind of different algorithms to identify patterns and to make predictions. So some examples that you might kind of seen are that, U of M's email spam filtering system. So it's basing that decision based on past examples and patterns. Probably even more relevant for us is, what is the Netflix or your TikTok or whatever social media algorithm you might use? What is it suggesting to you? It is using the pattern of what you've clicked on in the past, what other people who are similar to you have clicked on, and it's making suggestion. Machine learning is also responsible for, those credit card fraud alerts that might happen. Anything that kind of deviates from a normal pattern gets kind of an alert. So the next kind of circle here is deep learning. So deep learning is a more specialized type of machine learning. So it uses many layers to process information, and this is what allows AI to really excel at more complex tasks. So think about Face ID, which opens our phones, or the ability to translate languages in real time. Somebody mentioned that they use DeepL earlier, and I mean, that's this language translation in real time. To me, deep learning technology is often that kind of the kind of stuff that makes it feel like we are living in a science fiction movie, or that often kind of has that like magical feel. That stuff that you're just like, how is this even possible? So that's machine learning. So that's, yeah, sorry, facial recognition. And then the last one here, what we're talking about today is generative AI. So you can see it here, the orange circle at the bottom there. So it's the newest. It's often seen as the most creative subset of AI. A lot of traditional AI is used to make predictions or to categorize things, but generative AI is about generating new content. And that content can come out in a lot of different forms, like this graphic right in front of you. Or it can be, new text, music, videos, all of that. And essentially, generative AI uses the patterns that it has learned in deep learning to generate kind of new material. Okay, a few more terms. So you may have heard the term large language models. They are a specific subset of generative AI. And so as mentioned, right, generative AI includes that AI that creates new content. But large language models are like the underlying structure of these tools. It is what you are using every time you use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And these models are trained on vast amounts of data and media. Pretty much everything online has been scraped up and used to train these models. So when you hear about copyright lawsuits, this is where those lawsuits are being based on. But it is, and I think some people might not be aware of this, it's really important to realize that which specific model you are using can really impact your output or your results. So if you've ever been disappointed in an output, or you feel like you're not seeing what you think you should be seeing or what you could be seeing, it could be because you're choosing the wrong model. So what this image here is showing is the current kind of leaderboard of different models, as well as the big Sorry, I don't have it displayed here. Let me bring it up. Okay, so these are the big models, right? So it might be hard to see, but you can click on this link to see it. But what this is a ranking of different models at their ability to do different tasks. So for example, in this first one here, these first three, these are three different models. Two are Claude in first and second, and their ability to do text-based work. And you can see in the top three, there's two that are Anthropic or Claude models. For coding, Claude takes the top 5 spots. Each one of these is a different model. So it does different things. It works in different ways. So what I want you to kind of take away from all of this is that the AI model that you choose is that there are a lot of differences between them in really big and in small ways. So it can be things like their differences in their privacy policy, in their ability to do different tasks, their personalities, how they respond to you, and even how they approach ethical issues. So we are seeing this play out in real time right now, in the news right now. If anyone follows the lawsuits that are happening or the disagreements between the US military and Anthropic, which owns Claude. So choosing which model you use really impacts your output. So it's something to consider. So what I kind of want you to try now is from the AI tool that you opened, hopefully maybe one that you haven't looked at before, is to just look around on the screen and see if there are different models available to you. You'll see them with a little kind of a drop-down list. And just note that whether you have a free or paid account will impact how many models you can access. And again, depending on which one you're looking at, they'll kind of tell you, okay, this model is good for this kind of task. This model is fastest. This model is best for complex queries. So just take a look around and see those. Okay, I think one more term. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but I think a brief talk about how the large language models answer your question or your prompt can be helpful. So basically, the large language models, what they excel at is spotting patterns and making predictions on what word or what part of a word should come next. And it does this on a really huge scale. So when you enter something into the model, it takes your words or whatever you happen to input into it, and then it transforms it into tokens. So I'm skipping over a lot there. There's a lot of complexity, but these tokens allow a model to convert your text into numbers. And these numbers, they represent the meaning and relationship between other tokens. So a good example that I saw online that kind of resonated with me, it shows that models kind of mathematically know that the token number for king is related to the token number for man, and that the token number for queen is related to the token number for women. So it's all relationships. And then the model takes that sequence of token numbers and it generates an output, kind of one at a time. And then it calculates the probability of every possible next token. So sometimes, especially this was more obvious in the past, but it was almost like you could see it in real time, right? The words would come out a little kind of like almost like an old-fashioned typewriter, right? Beep, 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 beep. That was basically it running that prediction for every single token. So in this image, it shows you putting in a simple prompt of the quick brown, and then it runs it through and makes a probability prediction to say that fox is the most likely token or word to come next. And then it also shows you some other ones. This is a more simple, in some ways, example about how it makes a prediction. I read a good blank last week. What is the probability of this word or token being kind of the fill in the blank here? It also shows in some ways why you don't get the same answer twice. So you might, for this example, this is a very simple kind of example, but think about once you start putting any additional information, any additional complexity, it's giving you a mathematical probability and also these models like to have variation. So that is why you just really don't see the same thing twice for a lot of different reasons. Okay. So to wrap up my overview, don't worry about absorbing all of this information, but I do always like showing this image just to show how fast things are changing. So this very first gray block up here was when ChatGPT released its public model in November of 2022. And then we have a bit of a pause until February 2023, and when we see these new models released. But then since then, it is just constantly new models. So every little color block here is a new model, and it just keeps on going and going and going. And now here we are kind of into present day, February 2026. So really, I'm just trying to emphasize that things are constantly changing and improving. So if you are basing your knowledge kind of the capability of these tools on when you use them, say a few months ago, or sometimes even a few weeks ago, or even a few months ago, to know that things have already changed, and that the tools probably are much more capable now of kind of handling what you may have been trying to get information on in the past. Okay, so that sums up my introduction, kind of my background stuff, and kind of understanding how fast things are changing. So, but now that we know a little bit about it, how do we think about how to use these tools properly? So, the first thing to think about is how to effectively prompt them. So, what I would encourage you to do on your own is think about a topic you know a lot about. It doesn't have to be, and in some cases, should not be a topic you're learning about, say, in school, or a new research idea or question that you're thinking about it, but something you already know a lot about. And really, that's because the best way to evaluate the ability of a model is by asking it something you already know a lot about. Because then when it gives you an output or an answer, you can say, okay, I know that already. That's right. Oh, but they've really misinterpreted that. So just take a second, think about a topic you know a lot about, and we will kind of come back to that in a moment. Okay, so what is a prompt? It is a set of instructions that you provide to the AI to tell it what you want it to do. I try to be careful to always use the word prompt instead of question, as a lot of what I put in or what other people might put in isn't actually a question. It's instructions. So when you are creating your prompt, remember that the input and the output can be multimodal. So what that means is you can put in text, or you can put in an audio recording, or you could put in a video or pictures, and you can have the output come back to you in that same format or in a different format. So you can, take a video of items in your pantry, and then it can generate, let's say, a text-based recipe for you. And there is everything is just huge, but there's huge variability in the level of detail that can be provided in a prompt. It can range from a really simple thing like, okay, well, not even that simple, but give me a definition of what a large language model is. Or it can be, a prompt that is pages and pages long. And you may have heard of the term prompt engineering. That is basically the practice or the study of creating and refining prompts to get kind of the highest quality and the most relevant output from an AI. And there is, I would say, some debate as these systems improve about using kind of these more structured prompts, and their effectiveness, but I find them really helpful even just for myself to clarify my own thinking, in terms of what output I want. So I still use them, and I think they're just helpful to get you started, especially if you haven't done kind of too many more, or too many kind of more complex questions, essentially. Okay. So what I want you to do, you've got your AI, you've got a model chosen, you've thought of your topic. So just go ahead and put in a simple prompt on the AI on your topic of choice. Oh, and don't overthink it. Just go straight ahead. Okay, so in terms of taking a simple prompt and turning it into something a bit more structured, there are many, many different frameworks out there for how to approach that. One that I like and have used in the past, maybe because it was created by a librarian, is the CLEAR prompt, or pardon me, the CLEAR framework. And basically, it ensures that prompts are brief, they're structured, specific, and they're always kind of being refined. So the categories are to kind of to refine your prompt or expand it is the first is concise. So that means use really clear, simple language to instruct the AI model. Prioritize the most important information you want. You can skip polite words. We used to, when this first started, we used to say please and thank you. You can just skip that. You just want to be to the point. The next is you want to write logical prompts. So write them in a kind of clear, logical order and put them in steps, basically, about how you want that information to be processed and then the output to be generated. You want to write for explicit, you want to write really, again, specific instructions about what you want the output to look like. So do you want it in a table with these columns? Do you want it in Excel, in PDF? Do you want it how do you only want bullet points? You can specify all of that and you can apply essentially a persona. So you can say, okay, pretend I'm a teacher, pretend I'm a fifth grader, pretend I'm whatever, to help kind of specify the tone that you want, the reading level, all of that. And if you have examples of other things that are the right output, you can provide that to the model. You also want to be prepared to modify your prompts based on the results you're getting. So don't be afraid to rephrase, to tell the model that's not right. You're not interpreting this correctly. You're not doing what I want, and give it feedback on how to basically provide an output that's more in line with what you want. Sometimes you might have to split up questions. You might have to rephrase. There's a lot of different approaches. And you also want to kind of also be continuously reflective of what you're seeing. And you want to be evaluating the output for accuracy. And we're going to talk about this more kind of next week, how you do what's called like lateral reading to verify the accuracy and everything that you're seeing in the output. But that's a constant for anything when you're using AI. But you want to think about how can you craft better prompts and kind of learn from your experience as you go. And connected to this is that a lot of this, if you find that a lot of these specifications, you're using them again and again, the tools all have memory settings, so you can specify how you want your output so you don't have to rewrite it every single time. So here, as an example, is a very simple prompt. I want some activities for an 8-year-old who has ADHD to help them improve their fine motor skills. You could totally enter that in and you'd get something, somewhat helpful. If I was to use the CLEAR framework, here is how that simple prompt can be adapted and strengthened using the CLEAR framework. So here I can say, okay, I don't just want 5 examples. I want 5 evidence-based fine motor activities. I want the tool to organize the activities by the specific skill that they target, and I give some examples. For each of these, I want there to be a therapeutic modification to keep the child engaged and kind of give additional information. This is my persona. I'm the perspective of an experienced occupational therapist providing a home program for a parent. And before finalizing, check if these activities are developmentally appropriate. So just think about the difference between that simple prompt and what we see here. And at the same time, I also really want to emphasize that you could not come up with a good structured prompt like this without having a solid understanding and education already in this field of study or in this discipline. So in this example of OT that I give here, it can be a complement to my learning or to anybody's learning. So maybe you're a student and you're familiar with, say, one of these skills, like bilateral coordination, or these, but you know that there must be more out there like that. This is your way to kind of broaden your own knowledge to complement what you know already, by expanding it and getting new ideas. But if I tried to present this or any answers to an actual occupational therapist, they would know right away that I didn't know what I was talking about because I haven't studied and trained as an occupational therapist, right? So really, this is a complement or a way to delve more deeply into tasks, but it's not a way to shortcut, or, pretend that you know this when you don't actually understand it properly. Okay, so what I want you to do at this point is update your simple prompt and try using the CLEAR framework. So two approaches. One, because I know it can take a little bit more time to do than we might have in this presentation. You could ask AI to do it for you, just recognizing that the way that it structures it might not actually be what you would ever want to use in the real world, right? They're going to skip and come up with your own preferences, your own output format, that you might not be interested, but it's just a way to see the differences that you can make to a prompt and the output by just adding a little bit of additional information. So don't focus too much on the text here. I know there's a lot of it, but I wanted to give you an idea of the variability of prompts and consider, you can click on these links to see the output. So how do chemical compounds in ice wine impact taste perception? That's an okay prompt. When I get a little bit better, I am indicating where I am in my career, what I'm studying. I'm more specific about what I want that output to look like. I'm saying design a research proposal. I'm going to say, okay, I want these specific, to look at these specific tasks, and I want it to use these specific forms of analysis. But then to get even kind of a better prompt, I'm going even further into that because I'm specifying what I want. I want to brainstorm different methodologies. And I could give examples. I was considering this methodology, but are there some others that I might want to consider? I'm asking it to list potential concerns that people might have about this project and potential biases to be aware of. So again, these are really kind of good questions to ask an AI system because we only know often what we know, and sometimes it can be hard to brainstorm those ideas that we're just not aware of. So AI can raise awareness of things that you might not know about, based on your own education, your own training, your own biases. So feel free to click these and look at the results. They were all done in Claude, and they were all done using the same model. So the only difference in each one of them is the prompt itself, and you can just see very quickly the difference in the output. So it's kind of, I teach searching, or I have taught searching for a long time. And it was kind of how when I would teach people to build better searches, I was like, yeah, you can get something with this okay search or this okay prompt, but if you spend a little bit more time developing it, you can get much better outputs at the end. So just a few final things to refine your prompt. Again, the first prompt is not the last prompt. You really want to be modifying and making changes. I would also really recommend that you get either, well, I'll talk about it in a second, but tell these models to be a critic. They all want to be really helpful to you. And that can kind of often feel very sycophantic. Like they're just like, this is a great idea. Oh, why hadn't we thought about this? You need to tell it, be critical. Tell me when there's gaps in my knowledge. Tell me when this doesn't make sense. So again, just being really clear about what you want will improve your output. And again, emphasizing you really need content expertise in order to guide the prompt and the output. You need to do the work, the learning to be able to kind of be able to complement your learning by using these systems effectively. And I just put in some sample ways that you can continually kind of refine your prompts and get into different topic areas by asking for, different questions, different forms of data, come up with something else. So just some examples of how you can refine your prompt. Okay, so now we understand the systems, hopefully a little bit of understanding about how to prompt them. So let's explore some of the tools out there for a little bit. And my caveat for this section is that there are so many models and there's so many tools out there and things move really rapidly. So my content is hopefully current as of today, but it could change really fast. I'm going to focus on three broad classes of tools. So AI chatbots, AI systems that have that retrieval augmented generation, and personal research assistants. Okay, so the chatbots. So this is, again, what most people are likely using, although you never know. So we know generally how these tools, or pardon me, we saw generally how these tools work when we compared prompts. And again, I know you're familiar with, I won't spend too long here, but some additional information that maybe you don't know that could improve your general use of these tools. The first is to, again, really drive home the point that I brought up earlier, which is the model that you use and the system that it is kind of housed in will dramatically impact the output and the quality of that output. For most general questions, I would say the free versions of these are the big three that I mostly am talking about. The three versions they're good enough. They'll search the internet now in real time, which minimizes a lot of hallucinations. It's basically grounding the information kind of in and verifying it. How they actually search the internet varies between these tools, but is a bit beyond the scope of this presentation. But for deeper or more exhaustive inquiries, you might want to consider a paid version. So what I encourage people to do is play around with the three tools and figure out which one works best for you. I'm currently doing a research project that looks at these three different tools and evaluates their ability to do a specific task associated with my research area. So I spend a lot of time in all of them, and I vacillate a little bit between preferring Gemini because I have a lot of things in kind of the Google universe, and there's a lot of integrations that make using Gemini very easy. But I also like the guardrails and kind of privacy settings that Claude has created. So again, if you're just a ChatGPT user, try out one of these other ones or vice versa and see kind of what works for you. And again, the best way to do that is putting in a topic you know something about already and evaluating the responses. So something that maybe you didn't know is that all of the models allow you to, and hopefully it's not too small there, they allow you to provide information about who you are and how you prefer to have information conveyed to you in an output. So obviously, if you prefer to provide nothing, you can feel free to do that, but just know the results won't be as personalized. So I just kind of showed you mine a little bit. So you can see I have put in my actual job, and then I have put in for ChatGPT here, what are some of the traits that I want my outputs to have? So I like my outputs to be concise. I want them to be evidence-based. I don't want the model to pretend it knows the answer when it doesn't, and I want it to source its claims. That's what I've put into ChatGPT. This is Claude. And here I put some slightly different information. So here for this one, I said, when learning new concepts, so if I'm using an AI tool to learn about something new, I find analogies very helpful. how I like things explained to me. I like a sequential format, and I want all claims to be backed up with citations when possible. And I prefer information that is published in high impact journal factors in peer-reviewed journals. And again, I emphasize, if you don't know the answer, don't pretend, but admit that it's a knowledge gap. And then this is the last one here. This is Gemini. And so for this one, I just started doing this a few days ago, but I indicated to Gemini in my outputs, I want any evidence or examples given to link back to a Canadian context whenever possible. And I said, provide constructive criticism if I ask questions that don't make sense or require follow-up information. So again, putting it to say, give me Canadian examples I've already noticed it has been really helpful and interesting. I use AI to learn about new topics. And so when it gives me Canadian examples, it's much easier for me to kind of relate it to my life. Okay, so for the tool that you chose, see if you can see. It should be, depending on which one you're using, look under, say, settings or personalization or personal context, and just provide some additional instructions in your preferences. You can totally make it up. It doesn't have to be anything real if you don't want to provide that information. But put in that information, maybe run that same simple prompt and think about, do you see an immediate change? Do you see a change in how it responds to you? Because again, when you just leave the models kind of at the base model, the default, right? It's just going to do that same very overly helpful tone of voice, but you can really make adjustments to what suits you better in terms of how you want that output to look to make it more relevant for your work. So I just added this in. I just want people to be aware of it. So in case they see this term, so this is kind of agentic search or agentic tools. And again, you might not know that this is happening. I just wanted to raise some awareness. So, oh, hold on, let me bring these up. Okay, so we are seeing the growth of what's called this agentic search, and it has, I would say, the bigger implications for all of us, especially those people like myself who work a lot in, say, literature reviews. But what we saw with just the general AI kind of chatbots is it's more like we were having a conversation with them, right? We enter in a prompt and then we dictate how that AI, how it searches and where it searches, and then we get an output back. But all three of the big AI tools also have this agentic search, which is sometimes called deep research or sometimes just called research. And what it means, what agentic search means, is that the model itself becomes an active participant in the process. So the agentic systems can plan out whole research strategies. They can decide where to search. They can make a decision on the relevance of the content that it finds and whether to include it or not. It can synthesize information from dozens or hundreds of documents. It might ask you follow-up questions to provide clarifications, or it might just make that decision itself. Basically, agentic means that these models have a lot more autonomy in how it takes your prompt and what the process that it runs to get an output. So I will note that if you have free accounts, you will be limited in terms of how many of these kind of deep research queries you can run. They can take not really long time. I mean, it's all relative. They can take like 20 minutes to run, which is different than our very immediate response that many of us get used to. So just to be aware that this is a capability that all of these tools have. And because they take a little bit of time to run, I have just thrown up one of mine, not thrown, but provided one of mine. So this is a search I did, or pardon me, a prompt I put in that I wanted an analysis of deep research agents in kind of today's AI ecosystem. So this is just the summary. This is the table of contents. And then you can see kind of how deeply it investigates a topic. And if you want to see it in action, you can read through the report itself. It's here at this tiny URL here or there. So I'll just leave that up for a second in case, or I assume you all have the slides if you can click through to see it. But again, maybe something you didn't know about, but it's there. Okay, so those are our general search, our agentic search. And now I do want to make a case for tools that are specifically designed for research and academic tasks. So these tools can be very broad in nature, or they can be discipline specific. So I'm going to show two broad and one discipline specific. So in order to understand these, you have to know a little bit about why they're different. And it's partly because they are using what's called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. So what RAG technology does is it tells a large language model to use a specific kind of predetermined set of materials to answer the question, instead of using everything that has ever been posted online to answer that question. So these kind of predetermined set of materials or knowledge base, it can be anything. It can be reports, it can be web pages, academic papers, whatever. And then what happens is you put in your prompt and then it goes to this knowledge base to answer the question. And then it uses this large language model to kind of interpret and provide an output for you. And what it does, because you're only looking through this specific set of material, again, it really limits the rate of hallucination, or where kind of it makes up information. And it allows you to cite back to the original sources so you can better evaluate the quality of the information. So using tools that have RAG technology can really, again, improve the quality of the output of what you're looking at. So last year, the U of M launched its AI research assistant. I have no idea how many of you are aware of it. It's available via the library homepage, but you have to be affiliated with the U of M to use it, and you have to authenticate to use it. So it uses RAG technology, but it only searches the U of M library collection. And then what it does, you put in your I would say a more simple prompt, nothing too complex. And it will provide you a summarized response, and it will provide you five resources that we have in the library that might be used for you to do further research and analysis of. So it recommends up to 5. You can also kind of do a deeper dive to see other material by looking at more content, but the structured summary is based on just those five resources. So it does not include content from certain publishers based on certain restrictions, but it's a helpful one, I would say, to try out, especially if you, say, want students maybe to use it, but you want them only to use more authoritative resources that are available via the library. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is the basic interface. And then I have asked it a question about the impact of climate change on trade routes in Canada's Arctic. And you can see here, these are my 5 responses. It provides a summary and it links back to which of those sources it got that information from. So you could go in then and do a deeper dive on each one of those articles. A similar tool, but one that's a bit broader in nature, is Google Scholar Labs, which basically uses Gemini's large language model, but ties it to Google Scholar resources as its predetermined set of material. So again, you ask it kind of a natural language question on their topic. Again, you don't have to use too complex of a prompt because it's looking through a very specific set of materials already. And it will provide you a 1-sentence summary, and it'll provide you some bullet points on the main ideas of the paper and how they relate to your original question. So what makes it different from the U of M one is that you can ask follow-up questions, and it has, I would say, real strength in interdisciplinary topics, which has always been one of Google Scholar searches because it is so big. So it's a helpful one to just take a look at. It is still in beta, but if you have a Google account, you should be able to access it. And again, I threw up an example so you can see. Here's my kind of prompt, and then here are the articles. It provides a summary, and then here it gives you some kind of high-level bullet points. So what I might not have time now, and I recognize that, is just again, try out your simple topic of search, compare between the U of M AI Research Assistant and Google Scholar Labs to think about which output you prefer. And I wanted to briefly highlight what a discipline-specific version of this is. So I'm a health sciences librarian, so this is a health sciences tool. It is called the Literature. Very kind of vague name, but it's a free resource. It's created by a doctor. It searches just articles from PubMed. That is its knowledge base. And you can adjust the complexity of the search. So if you are just looking for quick answers, you can do that. Or if you're looking for a much more exhaustive search, you can do that as well. So here is what that looks like. You can see I've put in my question about potential biases in a health technology tool. I've selected my level of search. I just want a plain language review. It goes off and runs it. And then it gives you a summary, a too long didn't read. And then if I kept scrolling down, I would see all of the articles that it's pulling the information from. So again, this one is health sciences. I would really encourage you, based on what department or discipline you're studying in, is to see if there are discipline-specific tools out there for you and try them out. I'm always interested in hearing what people think about these discipline-specific tools, and really the only way to evaluate them is to use them. Okay. And finally, I want to introduce a tool that I have found to be very helpful with students, very popular, pardon me, with students and faculty, and that is a Google product called NotebookLM. So I would say there's nothing quite on the market quite like it. So it's kind of it doesn't have a real great comparator, although some of the agentic tools that are out there have some similarities, but it kind of stands on its own. So in terms of overall kind of ease of use and the cost, because it's free, it is very appealing. What is also appealing is because it is a closed system and it only uses content that you have uploaded. So you are creating basically that predetermined set of material by uploading content. So you can upload content in a wide variety of formats, so text, videos, transcripts, all those different kinds of things. I will caution you, do not upload copyrighted material here, but it is a closed system, but you still should just be aware of copyright. And then what happens is you can generate summaries of what you have uploaded, and you can ask questions of the content, and then you can use the studio feature to create a lot of interesting outputs. And I would say, so some of the outputs, I'll take a look at them, but are, podcasts, infographics, mind maps. So it's really helpful for when you're studying a new area or a new topic. And because you are only using material that you have kind of pre-identified, you can create these inline citations for everything. So it's again minimizing the rate of hallucinations because everything should be linked back, and you can then go and easily see in the primary material, okay, well, did it interpret that correctly? Is it understanding that? Is it understanding that? And your content, so your prompts, the material that you upload is not used to train Gemini or the Google system unless you provide feedback via the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So this is one of my notebooks. Again, this is just a test one. I've uploaded articles and videos, and then I've created a summary, and there's all these different outputs that you can make. I think probably Justin is tired of hearing me say this, but my favorite is the audio one because I absorb information best when I hear it as opposed to read it. So it can be really great to make accommodations for different types of learners if not everybody say learns. We know that not everybody learns in the same way. So again, you can feel free to explore my notebook. Try out one of the studio features, see if you like the infographic, just try it out and see. In my many talks with students, I can say that this is probably one of the most popular tools, and a lot of them are using it. So if you're an instructor, maybe you might want to consider exploring it and getting students to kind of evaluate the quality of some of those outputs. So, I know I've talked for a lot. I wanted to hopefully leave a few minutes for questions. I will also put up another kind of promotion for our next sessions that are coming up in a week and 2 weeks from now. I also want to put in my AI disclosure statement to say which tools I use to kind of clarify concepts that were in this presentation, to provide some case study topics and to generate that figure, and to outline the differences and capabilities for deep research. Just to always be transparent about how you're using these tools. I welcome your feedback. You can provide it here. We'll also, for everybody who registered, we will be sending out the slides and a recording once we have processed everything, and I'll throw the evaluation in there too. I know I'm a fast talker and I probably included way too much information, but I just like to cram everything in. So please feel free to provide feedback. And I assume Justin has been answering your questions in the chat, but if there's other questions that people have, and I'll also bring up the Menti just in case people threw anything in here. Okay. So I use the U of M library AI system and promote students. I'm assuming the AI assistant is secured. Sorry, is secure. Am I correct? Hold on. Let me reread this. Okay, I don't quite know what you mean by secure. Feel free to just maybe throw that in the chat and we can come back to it, or put just a clarification. Does everything you just described make traditional lit searches a thing of the past? Well, I will make a promotion to come to Justin's session, which really dives into this. I would argue it streamlines parts of the lit search process. And what I hope then comes out of it is that you can spend more time diving deeply into the literature as opposed to having to spend time finding things, but really how can you streamline some things and make things a little bit easier, but that you still need to engage with the literature that you're reading and understanding it. So I think it's changed it. It has not kind of gotten rid of it. Okay, I'm probably not going to get into this neural networks in the context of deep learning. I think of neural networks as being a human trait. I would say I don't feel I have the expertise to answer that off the top of my head. But you can feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat with people. And then, do large language models have access to published papers behind paywalls? That is a very good question. So they would say no, they don't. And so often when you're using some of these tools, what they are pulling their outputs, or what they're pulling their information from is the abstract and the metadata. So keep that in mind. You'll see it again, Justin, when he goes into looking at some of these tools that are very academically focused. You will kind of see it in action, which tools have access to full text papers. But some tools have signed agreements with publishers to get the full text of the papers. So then they're using the full text of the papers. I would also say that while companies might say they're not accessing the full text, a lot of content has been, say, uploaded by people who upload a PDF of an article into the model. Well, that model now has that full text of the article. So there's real variability, but a lot of times they're just using the abstract and the metadata. I would say, but yeah, it really varies. But they don't have access to full text. So again, this is why it comes back to traditional lit searches. When you're doing that full lit search, you are reading the full text of the paper. If you are relying on the large language model to interpret everything, it's just doing it in some cases based on the abstract, and you don't really know that unless you're kind of diving deep into it. So it could miss so much content, right? The abstract, we all know the abstract does not have everything important in a paper conveyed in it. So you're kind of missing a lot of context. Okay, how do these tools impact environment and water usage? So we will talk a little bit about this in the third session. I'll just share, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, so I know that it's something that I'm concerned about, my colleagues are concerned about, a lot of people are concerned about. From what I can tell and what I've studied up on individual use of generative AI tools, so putting in a prompt, is a very minimal environmental cost. It is the data centers that are the huge consumers of water and electricity. So the thing to keep in mind, though, is data centers run a lot of things through them. It is not just AI. So if you think of streaming a video, this meeting, right? All of that is running through the data centers. So I think what we need to advocate for kind of more broadly is placement of these AI centers, how they are built, making a lot of, it sounds boring, right? But you need to advocate for like more government regulation and oversight of these data centers. But I would say individual prompt use of these tools, that the environmental impact is fairly minimal, especially when you consider all of the various things that we as human beings do during the day now that would run through something like a data center. So those are my thoughts. Justin, is there anything that you wanted to raise or that I'm missing?
Oh yeah, that one was in the chat, the one that just came in on open evidence. Then there
Yep.
was one on maintaining privacy with inputs. And then there was one on can you speak more about what DeepSeek is and why it's not allowed, but also recognizing that it's 1 minute after one.
Okay, I'll try and go through them. Okay, so open evidence. I'm not familiar with Medscape AI, I admit. Open evidence is it's health sciences, one of those health sciences tools. It's having a huge impact. And I know that a lot of health professionals are using it. It is right now free for health practitioners or for clinicians to use. From my evaluations of it, it works pretty darn well to provide these summaries of the evidence. But we've done some evaluations on how it interprets kind of what it's reading. It is not always completely accurate in its synthesis, in its interpretation. So I would say open evidence definitely obviously can be used. It's very helpful, but in terms of using it when making clinical decisions, you always still want to be verifying and backing up all their evidence by looking at the primary sources. So whether those are guidelines or other reviews, those kinds of things. But it's a pretty powerful tool, pretty powerful tool. The second question was, I believe, privacy. So there's some different ways you can make your chats and things more private. So the first is you could use a browser that you don't typically use or signed in on. Like I'm signed in on Chrome and then I use Gemini. So I just assume Google knows everything about me, but I could use a browser that does less tracking, like DuckDuckGo, and then you can make all your chats. You can do it using transparent chat. So everything that you put into it, I'll just show you what it looks like. So you can see here in Claude, it's this little, okay, so look, it knows it's me. But it's really hard to see. It's this little ghost in the upper right-hand corner. And then, so what this has just changed it now. So now it doesn't it's not using my past history, my past questions, my preference, all those kinds of things. So it's a little bit more private, I would say. So all of them allow you to do that. There are some limitations. So for example, if I put in a prompt into Claude now, I couldn't share that output with you. So for example, these examples up here, I had to run them in the public model so that I could share them. The incognito chats you can't share. So use transparent chat. Obviously, do not upload anything private that you don't want it to know. If you're in a healthcare context, you would never upload patient information in any way or form. And sometimes these models will stop you. They'll say, nope, that's violation of privacy. Please do not do that. So those would be my suggestions. You can also always clear caches and cookies and things like that in the background, but I think the transparent chat is the best way to go. And Justin and I will also talk a little bit more about privacy in the third session. For DeepSeek, I would encourage you can read, where is it? DeepSeek, hold on. I know that they had that was that third question, right? Okay, here, if you just Google it, and they will get into why it is prohibited. I think I haven't looked at it lately. My understanding is DeepSeek is please someone correct me if I'm wrong, a model out of China, and the amount of information that it is gathering behind the scenes is a violation. It's just a lot of privacy and security concerns if you're using it in any way. So the U of M made that decision. We're not the only institution. I believe UBC also made that call, and I'm not sure about other institutions as well.